Hello, welcome. I hope you're doing well. This is the first volume in what I guess I'm calling my Scandinavian Literature Series, where I read Scandinavian literature in their original Scandinavian languages. If you don't know, one of my resolutions this year was to read more Scandinavian books. I'm Norwegian and Swedish, and I don't read anything in Norwegian or Swedish ever. And I kind of want to change that. That's one of my goals for the year, and in order to help me achieve it, I'm making it a little YouTube series. So here we are. As you can tell from the title, this first video is all about Jo Nesbø. Jo Nesbø is a Norwegian author. He writes most famously police thrillers. He is very, very famous in Norway, very well known in the kind of police thriller, crime, mystery genre. And the police thriller series that he writes is Harry Hole, which in English you would pronounce Harry Hole. Harry Hole, who is a police officer, and he lives and works in Norway in most of these books, and he solves crimes, basically. He and his team. And I figure it's a good place to start. He's probably the biggest Norwegian author we have, contemporary anyway, in the country. So he's written so many books at this point, and I'm so behind, and I feel like it's time that I catch on. So I've decided the plan is to read 3 of his books this week. The first book that I'm going to be reading is actually a short story collection. This is Sjalusimannen og andre fortellinger, which I guess the English translation is, I think, Sjalusimannen and Other Stories. I think there are 7 short stories in here. At the bottom here on the back it says, the stories in Sjalusimannen center around the strongest human emotions. In classic Nesbø way, we meet the potentially deadly outcome of jealousy, lust, and unfaithfulness. So very excited to read this. This will be my very first taste of Jo Nesbø. I figure a short story collection is a safe way to go. It's not very big, and there are plenty of breaks, so it shouldn't be too overwhelming. And yeah, so this will be the first story I read, and then my plan is to read 2 Harry Hole books. And the Harry Hole books that I've chosen are the 3rd book in the series, Rødstrupe, which I think the English translation is Redbreast. I've chosen this one because, well, I've consulted my parents, and they say that the 3rd book is a good place to start because the first 2, Nesbø is still kind of finding the character, finding the way he's telling the stories. It's not really there yet, but it really starts and kicks off here. On top of that, I've seen that this has a historical element to it, which I think, since I'm such a huge fan of historical elements in books, I figure that's probably just going to be, make this, an even better experience. Part of the reason why I chose the Harry Hole books that I did is because I watched a video on YouTube of Jo Nesbø answering the question which were his favorite Harry Hole books to write, or like which were the most memorable or something like that. And he said first Redbreast, because he used inspiration from his own family history for parts of it. That really, really intrigued me. I just love that there's a historical element in this. I cannot wait to find out more about that particular part of the story, about the story in general. I'm so intrigued. I have high hopes, high expectations. I really hope I end up really enjoying this one. Just fingers crossed, honestly. And then the second Harry Hole book that I've decided to pick up is the most well-known one, Snømannen, the Snowman. This is his most read book. This is the 7th book in the series. This is the book that was made into a movie with, I think it was Michael Fassbender. And that's part of the reason why I decided to pick this one up, because it's his most, well-known work and his most read work as well. But also because in that same, when he answered that question about the most memorable books he wrote, he mentioned Redbreast as one, this one as another one, because apparently this was the book where he started kind of trying out, kind of leaving behind a little bit the police focus of the stories and turned the focus a little bit more on the criminal and the psychology of the criminal and the crime. And that sounds just fantastic. It sounds so interesting. Apparently it's a little bit more leaning a little bit more towards the horror genre. So not really something that I know all that much about, but it's something I'm going to give a try. So that's the second Harry Hole book that I'll be reading this week. So these are the 3 Jo Nesbø books I'll be reading this week. This will be my first experience reading Jo Nesbø. It'll be the first time in forever that I read anything in Norwegian, and I'm really excited. I'm a little bit nervous. I have high expectations, high hopes, and I'm really scared of being disappointed. I'm also really scared of struggling through these. I really hope the writing style works for me and that they're fast-paced enough. I don't know, I'm worried, I'm excited. It's gonna be an interesting week. So I'm ready to go with Sjalusimannen and Other Stories. So I've read the first two stories in Sjalusimannen. The first story is called London and is really short, and the second one is Sjalusimannen, which is the, I guess, main story of the collection. It's the longest one. I really liked these two stories. London was interesting because it's written in second person, which takes a bit getting used to, being part of the story, you as a reader being part of the story. It was also a little funky because for some reason, and I cannot put my finger on it, but for some reason, the first story kind of read like a translation, which is weird. The story London, it's basically a story about a conversation that takes place on a plane between a man and a woman. They have a conversation, it's quite philosophical, and the characters are Englishmen, but obviously the story is written in Norwegian, but the characters are Englishmen. They have English names, but it's more than that. I don't know. It somehow, I read it and it really felt like I was reading a translation. I don't know how to explain. And then we get to Sjalusimannen, which was written in third person, and it was just a completely different vibe. But I really enjoyed them both. I liked these stories a lot. I had a good time with them. They were interesting. They're short stories. They're not super, they're not unpredictable. They were relatively predictable, or I feel like you probably get a good idea of where the story's going, but it's a short story. I don't expect it to be mind blown, but they were enjoyable to read, which is the biggest thing for me because I was really nervous about the writing style, which is a huge thing for me in general when I read, but when it comes to reading Norwegian, I really need to have a smooth reading experience. And this was a really smooth reading experience, even with the first story being a second person narration and then jumping to a third person narration in Sjalusimannen. I don't know, this is interesting so far. 2 stories down out of 7, 5 left, and so far I'm kind of hooked. I'm having a really good time with it. I just have a good feeling. Knock on wood, cross fingers. I have a good feeling about this, about Jo Nesbø. I have a good feeling. And I'm just really looking forward to getting to more of these stories now. So I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to read the rest of the stories and then come with my final thoughts on this particular collection when I finish it. Here's to hoping that the rest of this goes well. But so far, so good. Finished it and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I liked all of the stories. My favorite ones were London, Sjalusimannen, and Odd. I think those were my favorites. So the first one, the second one, and the sixth story in this collection. I liked the others too, but those three were my favorite. And you know, because all of these stories are like crime related, like no matter what Jo Nesbø writes, there will be death. Someone will die. And I really, really enjoyed the plots of all of these. And some were more original than others. Again, I don't think anything was unpredictable. I think the least predictable of all the stories was probably Odd. I think my favorite thing about this collection, though, is the fact that it feels a little bit like Jo Nesbø just kind of flexing his writing skills, because there's 7 stories, and across the 7 stories, we go through first person, second person, and third person. He uses all 3 of them, and not one of these stories is told the same way. All of the characters that we follow, all of their voices are so distinct from the others. They all have their quirks. Some of them have different dialects. Not one of them feels the same. All of these stories, the characters within the stories, all felt distinct from the other. And that's something that I think is so important in a short story collection. You need to be able to distinguish the stories from each other, because otherwise it becomes very monotone when you're reading. You end up just mixing the stories together and stuff like that. Not the case here, in my opinion, anyway. So I really, really liked that. After reading this now, I just am left feeling really impressed by Jo Nesbø, by his talent for writing. A really, really good first impression of Jo Nesbø. I'm really, really looking forward to getting to Harry Hole and seeing what that offers me, if it's anything like this at all. Because obviously he wrote those years ago. This came out very recently. This came out in 2021, I think, and the third Harry Hole book, Redbreast, which is the one I'm reading next, came out in 2000 or something. So long time ago. This is a very, very experienced Jo Nesbø writing this. So I'm interested in seeing how I fare with his earlier work, how I fare with Harry Hole, how I fare with a full-length story. Really, really looking forward to it. And I'm really excited now, because this was such a good experience, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. Okay, so I finished the first part, and I am obsessed. Nothing's even really happened yet, but I'm already super excited about it. This reads so easy. The reason that I've hesitated so long with reading Norwegian is because I seem to have been picking the wrong authors, because their writing styles have just not worked for me. But this is without question this is gonna be so fun. I have so much left, but I don't think it's gonna take long to get through these 430 pages at all. And I'm just really looking forward to it. First impression of Harry, he seems a lot more, I don't know, I kind of expected to not like him, not mind reading about him, but not like him as a person for some reason. I just usually don't love the detectives in these kinds of stories, but so far he seems quite likable. So the story in itself, jumping between days, which always takes a little bit getting used to, but I'm on board now. I don't know, I'm having such a great time with Jo Nesbø. I'm having already such a great time with Harry Hole. I'm having such a great time. Back to reading, because I don't want to put this down. I am now roughly halfway in Redbreast, and I'm having the best time with this book. It is so good. I was so nervous about reading this because it's like a 450-page book. All in Norwegian. I've never read a Norwegian book this long before, but his writing style and the language, it's so easy to read, and I can't stop flipping the pages. It's like really late at this point, and I don't want to stop. It is not often enough that I find a book that engages me the way this one does. I have no idea where this is going, but I have so many theories, and at the same time, I'm so clueless. This book has just really pulled me in. It is already probably the best book I've read this year. At least the book that's just like swallowed me the way none other have so far. This book. I'm also really enjoying Harry's character. I was a little worried that he'd be... I don't know, I just find that policemen in these kinds of stories are always so depressing and tiresome and just... I've mentioned it before, but like, I don't read thrillers for the cop or the person solving the crime. I read them for the crime and the person committing the crime. I want a story that's convoluted, that's clever and well thought out. I want to sit flipping pages. I don't want to be bored. And so I always struggle with thrillers because so many of them spend too much page time, in my opinion, on irrelevant things like the cop we follow's depressing personal life, you know? Like, that's such a staple in this genre, and I really hate it. I really don't like it. And although I feel like Harry probably falls into this kind of category of person too, it's not nearly as present in this, at least not in this story. Like, there's very little page time dedicated to Harry's personal life, and even when it is, I find I really like Harry. I don't know, I enjoy him as a character, and I mean, that really helps for sure, but it also helps that most of the words in this book are spent on the actual story and not on his personal life. It's paced really well, written really well. It's a very cool plot. This story has pulled me completely and it's engulfed me. It's just consumed me. And I love it when books do that. I love it when stories just consume me. Like I said, I'm about halfway and I cannot stop reading. I don't want to stop reading. I want to know what happens. I want to know where a criminal is, what the plan is. I want to know. I'm like desperate for answers. We're at a point now where the people we were following in the past, we jump between timelines. They're now also part of the present storyline. Still a complete mystery. You feel like you're picking up clues here and there, but at the same time, I'm just utterly clueless. Like, I'm having such a great fun time with this book. It's so good. As it is right now, Jo Nesbø is already, having only read 2 of his books, or one short story collection and halfway through an actual full-length book. One of my favorite authors. It's so premature to say that because he's written so many books, but there's no way that this is the only hit. There's no way that all of the other books that he's made are going to be miss. For me, there's no way. There's no way. There's absolutely no way that's gonna happen. I'm for sure going to enjoy more of his books. I'm so happy that it's Norwegian. I'm just so glad that I'm taking on reading more Norwegian and that I'm having such a good time with it. This was my best decision this year so far. Trying out Jo Nesbø, the best decision I've made so far this year. I mean, what can I say? So far, it's a 5-star book. So far, it's a 5-star book. I don't know what to tell you. It's perfect. The only thing that could mark this down is if I'm somehow disappointed by the ending, but I don't see how that's possible. This is just the happiest surprise for me. And really, I shouldn't be surprised. There's a reason that he's our biggest contemporary author. There's a reason why he's a bestseller when it comes to this genre. He knows what he's doing. And I'm just really, really, really late to the game. So in short, I'm enjoying the writing style, I'm enjoying the characters, I'm enjoying the plot, I'm enjoying the way that Jo Nesbø's built the story. It's effectively done in that I don't think he could have done this book better than he has. Like, his choices are all the right choices so far anyway. So I think most of my thoughts now are probably going to be the same when I finish it. I think I'm going to really enjoy this. I think I'm going to have nothing but praise for this book so far. I mean, all of my expectations have not only been met but surpassed. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how I feel about this when it's over. I'm just so relieved that it seems like I'm going to have an easy time with achieving that resolution that I made this year of reading more Scandinavian literature. It's for sure going to be, when I say Scandinavian literature, the intention was that I want to read Norwegian, Swedish, and Danish, but the emphasis will be on Norwegian and probably also Swedish, because those are the countries that I have the strongest connection to, the languages that I'm the most familiar with. I will also try and read some Danish, but I mean, at this point, I'm just really glad that it seems like I'm going to at least be reading a lot of Norwegian this year. So, very excited about that. Just so happy that I finally gave Jo Nesbø a chance, and that I'm so relieved that I'm having a good time with it. So, back to reading, because I can't wait anymore. I've talked way too long. I need to get back into this. I need to go. I'll check in again when I finish this. This book. So, I don't usually break in to talk specifically about something that I've just read, but there have been so many moments when I've been reading this where I've wanted to do that, because there have been so many moments that have just had me like, wait, hold up, backtrack, say that again. And I've like had to reread to like make sure that I got that right. And just, there's so many cool moments in this, like really satisfying moments. Like, I just read one, and I'm like, and I love it. I love when books make me like pause and just reread that sentence, because there's no way. This book is packed with moments like that. It's been so long since a book did this to me, where I'm just on the edge of my seat the whole time. And every time I'm like, okay, I'll read this one chapter and then I'll go to bed. Like now, I was like, okay, I'll read this chapter and then I'll go to bed. Except, wait. And it's just the best feeling. I love this feeling. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Anyway, I'm gonna go back to reading, because there's no way I'm going to bed right now. I was like planning to, but no, I have to read now a little bit more to see what that was all about. And then I'll go to bed. But yeah, I'm gonna go back to reading now. Okay, so I've finished Rødstrupe, and it was so good. It was amazing. It was so good. I loved this. I thought it was just perfect. This is one of the most engaging books I've read this year so far. I found Harry to be very sympathetic. I found him to be a very enjoyable character to read. I liked him as a character, and I liked hanging over his shoulder. I really liked the fact that he's not some sort of brain superstar Sherlock Holmes, Hercule Poirot, who figures everything out and is 10 steps ahead of everyone else at all times. I liked that he was figuring things out along with the reader. It was paced so well. Not only in that there are no boring parts and no parts overwhelm you, it's just steady throughout, but also the story is structured so well in that you get piece after piece after piece and you start putting them together yourself along with Harry, but like none of the puzzle pieces are too big. And it's just, this is also one of those stories where everything is important and everything matters. And I really enjoyed seeing all of the puzzle pieces falling into place. This was just incredibly compelling, so engaging. I was on the edge of my seat the whole time. I didn't want to put it down. I was reading and reading, and you think you're getting places, you think you're figuring it out, and then new pieces come into light, or you have to look at something a different way, and it's just, it felt so believable, incredibly believable, because of how well the characters were portrayed and how down to earth the plot was. Not down to earth, but like, it didn't feel too far-fetched, is what I wanted to say. I didn't think that the plot was too far-fetched, particularly because we got the historical context, a lot of it anyway. The historical parts were interesting in their own right, but when they started to kind of intertwine with the story in the present, it was so satisfying. I just really enjoyed how the story was told, how it was built up, how it was paced. I loved the writing. I thought the writing was just right for me. It was perfect for me. There were just so many layers to the story. It was complex, there was depth, and it was executed in such a smooth, satisfying, effective way. I can't praise the writing and the structure of the story enough. It was so exciting. And like I said, it was compelling, and I was making guesses and second-guessing myself, and it was just a really, really cool reading experience, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, this is one of the best books I've read so far this year. It was a perfect introduction to Harihule. For me, anyway, this was the perfect place to start, I think. And I'll probably eventually get to the first 2 books, but as it is, I don't think I could have started at a better point. I just really, really enjoyed the story, the writing, the characters. I enjoyed how things came together. It was just really, really good. So good. This book, 3rd book in the Harihule series, Redbreast in English, I think it's called, Rødstrupe in Norwegian. This is the kind of police thriller I want to read. It was perfect. It was as perfect as it could get. I would not have changed anything. This was perfect. So the standard is high right now for Jo Nesbø and Harihule, but we are going to go to the Snowman now. So apparently, according to Jo Nesbø, this was kind of where he started to focusing more on the criminal's psychology or something like that. So I'm really, really intrigued, and it sounds like it's made for me. So I'm ready. Let's go. Just popping in to say it's a little bit more gruesome than Redbreast was, but so far seems to be just as ingenious and clever. I'm having a good time with it. I really like Harry. I think Harry is a really cool police officer. I enjoy reading about him. I think it's partly to do with the fact that Nesbø really he doesn't really say more than is necessary for the story. Even when we digress a little bit from the main plot line, it still feels important somehow. like it matters. So I seem to be really enjoying Harry as a character, the other characters that we get to know. Yeah, I just seem to really vibe with Jo Nesbø's writing and his stories. So, onwards. Harry is so funny. That's it. No context. Just, he's so funny. He's so funny. I love him. He's so funny. I finished it and it was so good. It was really good. I think I liked Redbreast just like a little bit better, just like a tiny bit better, but this was great. It wasn't as like horror-y as I thought it would be. There were a couple of times where like the graphicness was like borderline what I could handle, but it was just like a handful of times throughout the book. All in all, I thought the story was brilliant. It was super clever. I loved following the process of the investigation, the ups and downs, the puzzle pieces that they tried to fit together, got a picture but it wasn't the right one, etc. It just felt so incredibly realistic and I really enjoyed that. So the story in itself, the plot was really great. It was cleverly constructed and taken apart in such a satisfying way. The pacing was excellent throughout the entire thing. It's steady and even until you get to like the last 10% of the book, and then you just can't flip the pages fast enough. It's been so long since I've read books like these where you're just so hooked and it's just 400 pages of excitement. I am really enjoying Harry's character. I find him such a good main character, such a good police officer to follow. There are for sure times where you kind of sidetrack into less of the investigation and police work and more into like personal life stuff, but it's never very long and somehow it always ties back. I also found Harry to be a very sympathetic character. For some reason, I enjoy following him on the page. I also really like that he's not just some sort of inherent genius that solves everything before anyone else, but that he needs help from others and that he needs time to think and that he needs to look at things in different perspectives sometimes and that he kind of comes to conclusions along with the reader. And it's just... the whole thing makes the whole thing feel more believable, more realistic, which really matters to me with these kinds of stories, with any kind of story really. I just find Harry to be a thoroughly solid good character. One of my favorite things about not just this book but also Rødstrupe is the amount of details, and like everything is important and you have to pick up on everything and it's just so satisfying and so much fun. I don't know, I'm very satisfied with this book. And you can tell too that there are elements in both this one and the last one that kind of belong to like the series as a whole. So yeah, we'll definitely be reading the other books in this series too, probably in order from now on. Really enjoyed my time with this book, with Rødstrupe, also with the short stories. Just all in all, it's just been a great time. This whole week with these 3 books has just been a great time. This week has been a success. But that's it really from me this time around. As I say, I thoroughly enjoyed all 3 of these books. Really enjoy the writing, really enjoy the characters, particularly Harry. The plots are clever and cunning and there's so many layers and details and just everything you could ask for in a police thriller are there and they're done to like perfection. So I've had a great time with these books and you'll probably see more of them popping up throughout the year. But yeah, that's it from me. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've had a really good day and I hope the book you're reading is a really good one. Bye.